So in this session, we're going to look at how do you design learning that provides opportunities for students to meet the content objectives and enhance 21st century competencies. Let's review the ideas from our activities so far. First, we analyzed a unit to see what gaps might need to be filled in regards to providing students access to 21st century learning opportunities. We identified our hurdles and ways to get over them. We explored how we can find resources to get ideas for our lessons. For this activity, you will go back to the unit you analyzed for 21st century skills in session 2 and look at making modifications using what you learned in session 3. Remember, the primary transformation is not about what technology you use, but how you set up your classroom to engage students in 21st century learning through different tools. Making changes involves time, collaboration, risk-taking, feedback, and focusing on strategic areas of need. Your goal for this activity is to take the first step towards transforming your unit, and that this will be a continued process over time. In the next session, we'll look at how you take feedback and use reflection to make continued updates. I will take you through an example of how my linear systems of equations from session 2 transformed over years. Yes, years. I had many failures that led to many successes. While it is hard to go through what we call failures, I had to remind myself that learning comes from mistakes for both the student and teacher, and without them we wouldn't change and evolve. My initial analysis from session 2 showed I was missing information literacy, invention, and self-direction opportunities. I looked at feedback from students, and I saw the need for choice and the need for students to use different media to learn or to demonstrate their learning. First, I found that whole group instruction was not working for many students. The students came with a wide variety of background and experiences. My goal was to figure out how to meet their various needs. From the pre-test, I identified their different areas of need so I can meet students at their zone of proximal development, the ZPD. For my first transformation of this unit, I focused on a strategic area of having students create something new and have opportunities for self-direction. Based on the pre-test, I had the students work in groups where they were assigned concepts that they could work on without direct teacher instruction all the time. They created a video or presentation, such as a Google presentation or Prezi, and then each group presented the topic to the entire class using the video or presentation, and then helped their classmates with some problems. In this project, I didn't have a computer for all kids. I had some flip cameras and the group shared a computer. At this time, there wasn't a computer for each student to access, so this worked out well to have students in small groups. Here are some examples of what students created to present to their classmates.
How do you solve a system of equations using graphing?
A system of linear equations is two or more linear equations, and the solution to such is any ordered pair that makes the equation true. The solution to a system of linear equations is where both lines intersect and meet. So as you can see here, where these lines connect, there's one solution. If the same lines fall in the same slope with the same equation, and they both go the same direction, are on the same grid coordinate, there is infinite solutions because they're always touching. If they're parallel to each other, there is no solution. The lines never touch because parallel lines never meet.
Okay.
Alright, so this is the first equation. This is the y-intercept. Start at 7. Then this is the slope. Log 1. Go across 2. So 7, go 1, go across 2. So the y-intercept is at 3. So I start at 3. And the slope is 3 over 2. You go up 3. Go across 2. So I start here. 1, 2, 3 over 2. And I keep doing that again. And they cross at 4 over 9. And then I have to connect 4 for the x. So 1/2 times 4 plus 7 plus half to equals 9. So I get 2 plus 7 is 9. And right here, add 9 too. So 3/2 times 4 plus 3, 6 plus 3, so it's 9.
We have recently discovered this vital problem of substitution. We are asked to approach this with some sort of solution. So, we researched and found out the secret that has been hidden.
I wanted the students to see how all the concepts were connected and introduce more information literacy. So my next transformation, I was looking for a way to organize and keep the videos and presentations as future resources for students and put them in a place where they could all see how they all were interconnected and how for them to understand one concept they might have needed to understand some other concept. So I set up a Google site. I made a template to use in my classes where students created pages to form the website. At this time, each student had access to a Chromebook. The goal was for the students to create a web page of multimedia learning tools. They could use videos, interactive games, web pages, images, Alice computer program, math game, etc. So they could use these resources on their summative assessment for this unit. It built community of why there was a reason for it. We discussed how they learn and how others learn, and how they can use multimedia to help support them in teaching someone else. You can see more details about the project in the resource section. There were 3 main parts of the web page they had to create. Part 1 is where they use text and images to define their terms and concepts. Part 2 is where they use videos and games to show how to apply the concepts. And Part 3 is where they check for understanding by creating their own presentation, video, or computer game. In my classroom, I had 2 activity areas for students to create videos and an activity area for students to work on Alice programs together. There were also areas for groups to work on their websites, and I would rotate to have conversations with the small groups. So, by adding this website project, for information literacy, students would gather and evaluate information from multiple resources such as text, graphics, games, and videos to communicate math concepts to each other. To incorporate self-direction, this project allowed students to balance self-advocacy with the consideration of others by creating web pages to meet their learning style and also learning style of others. They demonstrated persistence and perseverance to take ownership of personal learning, where students showed pride in work, reflected on choices, evaluated on outcomes, adapted and revised to foster growth. They were given the opportunity to initiate their own learning and follow through independently as they were in charge of part of everyone's learning. They had to consider managing time effectively, planning, prioritizing, and evaluating progress towards the goal of completing the web page by a certain timeline. They had the opportunity for invention. They could create original product to check other people's understanding, and they had a choice to what media they wanted to use. They took risks and learned from successes and failures as they faced different hurdles, and then they made changes based on feedback. They had opportunities for critical thinking and reasoning. They applied logical reasoning and analytical skills to design a web page to help others understand math concepts and to learn new math concepts. They identified and defined problems others might have in understanding concepts and devised creative logical solutions. They responded critically, posed high-order investigative questions, and personally reflected on the web pages created by themselves and their peers. One of the best transformations I saw was the level of collaboration. Not only did they have to look at their individual agendas, but they had to look at the interest of the group. They had to demonstrate leadership skills and recognize the value of cooperation for a common purpose and goal. They had to foster a safe environment to discuss among their peers, to give feedback, to make improvements. They had to speak and listen to support their understanding and others' understanding in the different ideas and perspectives that people had when learning math. I also had my share of hurdles. The biggest hurdle I had was absenteeism. I was on an alternative school that had a very high absentee rate. Sometimes that made it difficult for the students to work in groups or to complete the pages. What helped me in the end was having resources from other years to fill in the gaps when students weren't there to create the final project. The other hurdle was the students maybe lost their videos or didn't save something and they lost things on their web pages. So there were always some technical glitches along the way. But again, in the end, it was worth getting through those hurdles for the students to have such a good experience. Now it's your turn to start transforming your classroom. You can go back to the unit you analyzed in Activity 2.1. Think about how you would like to improve this unit to provide more 21st century learning opportunities for your students. Again, don't try to change everything. It takes time, and implement little things, and those little steps end up being great successes. You can use Activity 3.1 where we found different resources. Maybe you want to go to the levels of technology integration. And remember, in here they have all the different areas if you want to go look at the grade level index to get some different ideas of something you might want to look at. You can also go to Aspire's spreadsheet and look at the general areas, or you can look at your content area to see if you can find some ideas. Then you're going to create a product. Options are always nice. So how you want to create that product is up to you. Do you want to do a video screencast? Do you want to do Movely? Do you want to do iMovie, a Screen-O-Matic? What is it that you want to do? A presentation, Prezi? Maybe do something you'd like to see your students do. Maybe you want to just look at how you can work with a Word document to put your links and images in to explain something. Or a Google document, maybe you want to organize it in a spreadsheet. It is your choice to figure out what tool you would like to explore. And when you create this product, what it should include are what are your content objectives? What 21st century competencies are you looking to add or improve? How are you going to organize your classroom? What new activities or project are you incorporating? What technologies will help support student learning in completing this project and meeting those 21st century competencies? And list what 21st century competencies that the students now have an opportunity to apply. And then there are always roadblocks, any that you might already know that you might encounter, and what supports can you find in your school. And don't forget, when you run into issues in the classroom, you can also use your students as support.